Welcome back to Yang Daily. My apologies for not getting an episode out last night, but that just means there's more to go around today. So much news, let's get to it. Tulsi's resolution for a UBI stimulus is not included in the relief bill expected to pass the Senate next week. That said, this is no reason to stop pushing. The crisis is going to be going on for many months, and we have not seen the worst of it by a long shot, nor have we seen the last economic stimulus legislation. I expect there will be many more passed over the next month, and we need to make sure UBI is one of them. So keep contacting your representatives to let them know why UBI is the best solution and that you will be thinking about what action they choose to take come next election. UBI caucus has another new member today. Please welcome Richard Thripp, running for Florida's 6th Congressional District. His primary policies are Green New Deal, increasing taxes on non-wage income such as rent, dividends, capital gains, and interest, removing the cap on Social Security payroll taxes, increased funding for the IRS, enacting a wealth tax, and recently, M4A and UBI. No UBI payment plan has yet been presented. Check Mr. Thripp out for yourself at his website below and consider supporting him. A South Korean city, Jeonju, has lost patience waiting for their federal government and has gone ahead and adopted emergency basic income for 50,000 citizens of $500,000 each, distributed via debit cards and to be spent in the next 3 months. Wish my city had that kind of impatience. Scott Santons tweeted out a bunch of pages from a book today that studies Nixon's version of UBI, the Family Assistance Plan, and how it was developed, why it was developed, how close it came to passing, and why it ultimately fell short. It's a fascinating read, and there is much for us to learn from it. The circumstances were similar. 5 months before it passed the House, a survey of Congresspeople found no one believed it could happen, much like modern times, when UBI was considered a radical fringe policy months ago, and today it is being called for by everyone and their mother to be enacted as a stimulus. National perspective can shift incredibly fast. One of the reasons Congress came around so quickly was the president proposing the policy. Another reason was strategically naming it the Family Assistance Plan rather than guaranteed income, as the public had a very negative connotation with the idea of people having income without working. Mindset of scarcity, Yang would attribute this to. But with a shift of narrative, facilitated by an embedded incentive for work, which consisted of a higher benefit amount for workers, public sentiment turned swiftly in favor. This shows how little politics has to do with substance and how much to do with labels and narratives. I wonder how Freedom Dividend stacks up as a name and whether people would still give more support if work incentives were added. I don't like the idea of arbitrarily discriminating what counts as work and what does not, but we would be wise to do what we can to combat the image of UBI as a handout because the public sentiment clearly still persists. Nixon's desire for the plan was based on his dissatisfaction with the welfare system, which had failed to eradicate poverty and resulted in an inefficient mess of bureaucracy that had bad incentives, high costs, and poor execution. No pun intended. Another point on which we can still relate, as welfare still constrains recipients, disincentivizes work, funnels money into bureaucracy, and misses the majority of people who should be receiving benefits. It was actually conservatives like Nixon who pushed for UBI, wanting to replace the rat's nest of welfare with simple income redistribution. No doubt this informed Yang's decision, through Scott, to have some welfare programs not stack with UBI, enticing support from such conservatives. I agree with them that we do need to ultimately replace welfare with a simple and guaranteed check, though I think Yang is right to start small and opt in. The overarching political mood of the 60s was one of disgust with big government, on both sides of the aisle. This helped push Nixon's UBI through. It is reminiscent of today's disgust with establishment politics and the swamp, which could also be a strong ally for us in pushing UBI through today. The parties of the time were at unprecedented odds with each other. The nation was mired in an unwinnable war from which it seemingly could not disengage. The left was marching toward Marxist socialism, and the right was retreating into authoritarianism. Any of this sounding familiar? Welfare was a major point of contention as Republicans saw how stigmatizing and dehumanizing the system was, on top of its other problems, while Democrats largely jumped from the idea that it shouldn't be that way straight to the delusion that it isn't that way, missing the reality in between. I can certainly see this in people like AOC when they seek to defend the welfare system as a matter of habit, even against a better alternative. There has been such contention over it for so long that Democrats are hardwired to defend it and slow to consider that there may be a better way. It's something we will have to work through, carefully avoiding triggering knee jerk reactions as much as possible. Experiments conducted across the country to test UBI prior to implementation found concerns of extreme, unusual, or unanticipated side effects to be spurious. Work effort among recipients was found to increase rather than decrease. Low income families were found to reduce borrowing and use of credit and spend more into consumer goods. The program was also unsurprisingly found to be far more cost efficient than the welfare programs it would replace. This is entirely consistent with all other trials of UBI-like cash grants, all showing no significant reduction in the workforce. I expect the Family Assistance Plan showed an extra increase due to the work incentives embedded within it. The Family Assistance Plan was ultimately passed in the House 2-1, but stalled out in the Senate due to opposition from those who thought the amount was not high enough. I don't know the details here, but I assume this was likely due to the plan replacing all welfare, and there was a disagreement over whether the benefit amount was significant enough to compensate for the loss. I think Yang has technically avoided this issue by starting with only a few programs not stacking and making it opt in so that there's no chance of anyone being worse off. Big picture of all of this is that UBI almost happened once before in circumstances similar to ours. If we can learn from the past and use it to refine our movement a bit, we can make this happen. Moving on, UBI Guy wrote a Medium article that serves as a guide to understanding coronavirus and appropriate responses to it. It digs into how dangerous the virus is, compares to past epidemics, examines the importance of slowing the spread, how that can be done, what different countries have done, and how that turned out for them, and what measures could be taken here. The short and skinny of it is that COVID-19 is quite dangerous. It is many times more deadly than the flu, more so the older you are, and is on pace to infect many, many times more people than all other recent pandemics, maybe up to over half the world's population. Slowing the spread is enormously important because 20% of cases require hospitalization, and the more overloaded our medical facilities become, the higher the fatality rate goes, and it will spread exponentially if left unchecked, amplifying deaths many-fold. All of us would lose someone, and the economic damage would be equally extreme. Countries that have taken extreme measures to prevent infection have been successful in stopping the spread. China did it through intensive quarantine, and South Korea did it through moderate quarantine and heavy testing. It can be stopped, but the US is not doing nearly enough yet, and every second of delay makes the effort exponentially more difficult. The most important measures we can take are, personally, to wash hands regularly and thoroughly, particularly when returning home, avoid touching the face, and avoid other people as much as possible. It's even a good idea to have a change of clothes so that when you get home, you can change out of clothes that may be infected. Nationally, we must make testing readily available and free, which the relief bill is helping with, and we must facilitate people quarantining themselves. As you may have heard somewhere, UBI is the most effective way to do this, and is the easiest to make happen immediately. I trust you've heard enough about that. If you're interested in the details of all of this, I highly recommend reading the article below. Yang warned today that we could be headed for an economic depression if we don't grant people financial security and buying power immediately. Unlike the recession of 2008, this is not simply a financial crisis, it's a pandemic that's impacting production and playing havoc with the workforce. It could easily spiral down in a feedback loop. Biden and Bernie had little to offer in the way of emergency response to the virus at the debate tonight. Both said they would provide paid leave and free testing, both of which are already in the relief bill passed by the House. Both of them said they would also make all treatment free. Bernie went on about how people should feel free to seek treatment when they feel sick. Unfortunately, this is somewhat counter to what health officials are asking, which is for people to not come to hospitals unless they have severe symptoms, as there is little that can be done for mild symptoms. It would just expose others at the hospital and expend precious resources. That said, it would be good for those with severe symptoms to not be facing the barrier of cost. No mention was made of any other measures that would help keep people home and financially secure, such as UBI. Biden also shut down our hopes of Yang as a VP, as he committed exclusively to a female VP at the debate. But while the Democratic candidates refuse to acknowledge the issue, the number of voices coming out in support of emergency UBI continues to grow, with dozens of blue check marks on Twitter, articles, and congresspeople endorsing the measure every day. That said, many congresspeople still somehow are unaware of emergency UBI at all, much less the details on why it is the best approach. Please educate your representatives. Click the link below to send your representatives a copy of the UBI stimulus petition via Twitter's ResistBot AI. You can do the same via text message by texting sign OTBAXN to 50409. Those instructions in the links, of course. If you'd like to call or compose a custom letter, just text resist to 50409, and it will give you the option to either call the appropriate number or draw up a quick and tidy template letter for you and have it sent to your representatives. Just follow the easy instructions and it will do the rest. I highly suggest doing both. Income Movement has also set up a super easy letter sending service that will find your representatives, provide a template letter for you to personalize, and send it for you. This one is for Tulsi Gabbard's UBI STEM bill. Find it in the links below. Even if you've already written them, one more can't hurt, right? Congress will continue considering stimulus efforts for weeks, if not months, and we need all Yang Gang to flood their inbox and voicemail so they have no doubt their constituents want them to support emergency UBI as the simplest, most immediate, most effective, least discriminatory, most bipartisan means to prop up the economy and business, rescue all citizens, slow the spread of the virus, and secure their re-election. It only takes a few minutes, so please add your voice to ours. We've never had an opportunity like this. Humanity for Yang has announced that we are switching to hashtag #WeNeedUBI because, well, we really do. Every day of delay makes this thing exponentially harder to stop, both in terms of the virus and the recession, if not depression. We must get Congress to act now. On a lighter note, it turns out Norway has taken the outbreak as an opportunity to deliver a truly sick burn on the US. And yes, that is a sick pun. We also won't be able to treat that sick burn due to our shoddy healthcare. Okay, I'll stop. In a press statement, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology advised students to return home, especially if they are, quote, staying in a country with poorly developed health services and infrastructure, for example, the USA, end quote. Damn, Norway, how long you been waiting to drop that line? They over there laughing their butts off, and all I can say is, touche, Norway, touche. Maybe once we actually have tests to hand out to people, we can get back to them on that. Before we go, I have to mention the concession made by a political commentator, Max Burns, today. Max admitted how Yang and his ideas were dismissed by so many during the campaign, including by Max himself, who called Yang an attention seeker. He went on to directly apologize for his careless smear from months ago. Max now acknowledges that Yang was completely right about how fragile our economic system is and how much UBI could do to strengthen it. He marveled at how quickly Yang has propelled UBI from a cult issue into potentially federal policy and has changed his label of Andrew to one of the rare true visionaries in politics. He calls on Biden to save a spot in the administration for Yang. This is really cathartic for me. Seeing people who were so opposed to Yang now coming around and admitting he was right all along about something so fundamental in our society. Respect to you, Max. We all make mistakes, but those with integrity own their errors and use them to grow. You've done that today. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Check out Thrip and consider supporting him. Help trend We Need UBI on Twitter. Read through UBI Guy's Pandemic Guide. Send your best zinger to Norway. Sign the UBI stimulus petition below. Message Trump why UBI stimulus is the best solution. Use ResistBot or Income Movement to easily contact your representatives. And don't forget to Yang Daily.